Hello everybody, and welcome once again to EWTS 2021. My name is Mike Campbell, and I'm the General Manager of the Vuforia business at PTC. And I'm thrilled to be here with all of you today to talk a little bit about connecting the industrial frontline and augmented reality in the future of work. Before we begin, I think it's important to recognize that 75% of the world's workers are on the front line. Now sure, many of them might be in grocery stores or your local gas station, but about 1 billion of them are working in industrial enterprises. And these industrial enterprises are facing unprecedented pressure. First off, there's a growing gap in the skills of these frontline workers. Many people are retiring, leaving the workforce, and they're taking their institutional knowledge with them. And new entrants to the workforce have a negative perception of industrial work. They think of it as dirty and greasy and don't really have a great appreciation for all of the phenomenal technology and automation that exists there. Products and processes are becoming more complex. Think about what goes into a product that you might use on a daily basis. No longer are they just mechanical or even electrical. They've got connectivity and all kinds of software built into them. The same is true with the processes that we would see in our factories or in our service depots. And finally, customer demands continue to evolve. We're trying to satisfy the needs of a global customer base. They're demanding all kinds of tailored offerings that are customized to meet their specific needs. All of this means that the traditional methods that we would use to educate and empower and upskill our frontline workers, they fall short today. These traditional methods would include things like 2D paper documentation, long training classes where we sit in front of PowerPoint slides, or shadowing experts, which can take lots of time and isn't really effective in today's world. This is where the power of augmented reality comes in. Augmented reality gives us the ability to present people with the information that they need to know when and where they need it. It allows us to put information in context of the physical world where these frontline workers are doing their work. It allows us to provide them procedural guidance so that they can get work done accurately the first time. And finally, it allows them to interact with information, not just receive it as a one-way stream. Now, this is incredibly valuable for workers, but it's also incredibly valuable for the business. It allows us to do things like reduce costs. Training time can be reduced by up to 60%. We can author and create content and get it out much, much faster. We can improve the productivity, and not only the productivity, but the quality of work that gets done, reducing scrap and rework by up to 25%. And then finally, we can use AR to ensure that work is done in a regulatory compliant fashion or a way that ensures safety. We've seen AR reduce injuries in the workplace by up to 15%. So these are all tangible benefits that ultimately impact the bottom line, either improving your costs or improving the top line and increasing asset utilization. Now, the great thing about augmented reality is that it has application across many different life cycles. So let's first talk about the life cycle of an employee. I'd like to talk a little bit about technical training, right? As employees come on board and they need to get educated, and how AR can allow us to use rich 3D assets to clearly educate in a very intuitive way how work should be done. I also want to talk a little bit about work instructions, right? This is one of the killer use cases for AR in terms of guiding people through the work that needs to be done, providing relevant knowledge, relevant insights when and where they need it. And then finally, I also want to talk a little bit about remote assistance. Even after employees have been on the job for some time, they've done all the training, they're very well versed in the work that needs to be done, invariably issues come up, and they may need help from somebody else. So let's start with training. And I want to share with you an example from a PTC customer called Atlas Copco. Atlas Copco has an incredibly broad product portfolio, over 10,000 products out in the field. And they're leveraging AR and digital eyewear to prepare a technician before he or she goes out into the field to understand exactly what they'll be encountering. They're visualizing the products and the procedures at scale that are specific to the work that's to be done. Here you can see 3D work instructions being presented. You'll also see other information from other digital enterprise systems, parts lists, information about the customer, so that when the technician shows up in the field, they're ready to do the work and they get the work done correctly the first time. There's no need for a second roll of a truck to go out and ensure that the customer is satisfied with the work that's been done. So this has had a pretty profound impact at Atlas Copco. They're very interested in ensuring that their employees are ready to do the work, and leveraging AR, leveraging digital eyewear, enables the technician to be much more familiar with what they're about to encounter before they get out to the situation in the field. Let's also talk a little bit about work instructions. And first I want to talk about 3D work instructions, leveraging rich, high-fidelity CAD to clearly communicate in AR procedures that need to be executed. Here we're looking at the authoring of a 3D work instruction that is being defined relative to a digital model. This procedure can include textual instructions, videos, images, schematics, but all of those are being associated with the 3D model. In the field, that technician can use the power of AR to instantly recognize the device and then be drawn directly to the point where the work is to be done. And when they arrive at the right location on the machine, in this case the motorcycle, they're given the specific instructions, in this case inspection instructions, where a variety of things need to be checked when the motorcycle is delivered to the dealership. The interesting thing about this digital conveyance of information is that it's not just one way. So as the technician chooses pass or fail, as the technician goes through a variety of products that need to be checked, all of that information is aggregated so that it can be analyzed. We can understand things like who did what work, how long did it take them, what were the results, and what was the resulting quality of the product that was delivered. So this is a great example of leveraging 3D to communicate work instructions in AR, but we all know that we don't always have the luxury of CAD data. Luckily, one of our customers, Harpak Alma, does, and they're very excited about leveraging 3D to take advantage of this kind of an approach, right? In the face of, again, increasing product complexity, a growing workforce, they want to be able to clearly and effectively communicate. But there are lots of customers that don't have 3D. And in those cases, technology exists that allows you to capture institutional knowledge, tacit domain knowledge that exists in the minds, in the heads, and the memories of your most tenured experts. They can wear a piece of digital eyewear and then pretty passively just do their job, talking through the different steps in a sequence while that talk track, videos, images are all being captured. That information can be enhanced, images can be annotated, videos can be trimmed, text can be translated to different languages, and then presented to a novice worker so that, again, they're getting that knowledge where and when they need it, presented exactly at the locations where the work is to be done. And we've got many customers that are taking advantage of this technology as well. Again, largely for training, largely in the face of a workforce that has knowledge and may be leaving the field very shortly in preparation to upskill a broader ecosystem, new employees, even customers in some cases with that knowledge. That's exactly what Keynote, a local Boston company actually that specializes in electronic componentry, is doing with expert capture. In fact, we did a recent study where we took a cohort of new technicians. There were 16 of them. We split them up into two groups and we trained them on a particular assembly procedure. The first group of 8, you can see their results here, we measured how many successful steps in the procedure they completed and how long it took them to do so. And you can see that a couple of folks in the top left corner were able to complete a lot of the steps in the procedure in a relatively short amount of time, but many others didn't have such great results. The other half of the cohort, the other 8, took advantage of expert capture created content. They were shown images, videos in a stepwise fashion where and when they needed it. And you can see here the results are much better. Many more successfully completed steps in a much shorter period of time. So if I'm on a manufacturing line and a machine has gone down and the technician is showing up to help me, those are the folks on the right-hand side that I certainly want coming to address the problem. And then finally, let's talk about expert assistance, right? Remote collaboration, the idea that even after I've been trained, I'm out in the field and I've encountered an issue. AR and frankly, digital eyewear as well, can be used to connect with experts, to share with them my field of view, and to use AR to draw annotations on exactly what I'm seeing, annotations that persist in the real world. This technology runs on a variety of different devices, of course, all of the standard phones and tablets and really the devices that technicians are likely to have, but it also runs on digital eyewear, as you can see here with a RealWear device. In fact, it also runs on a desktop computer. This is very convenient for an expert. So here we see an expert working in a Chrome browser on a desktop computer, and you also see the view of a remote expert wearing a RealWear device in the lower right-hand corner. So the expert has communicated a connect code. Think of this like you would a WebEx code where the two folks can connect. And then we see the remote technician view and the expert seeing what's happening in the field. They can communicate with voice, they're seeing the same shared video, and then the remote expert can annotate frames in the video feed to communicate where particular kinds of work needs to be done. So this is very effective, a very unambiguous communication that ensures that the field technician can resolve the issue at hand and get the machine back up and running or complete the work that needs to be done accurately and correct the very first time. Other advancements that are coming in this area of technology include things like textual communication for particularly loud environments and support for other devices, other forms of digital eyewear as well in the future. A great PTC customer, a relatively new PTC customer, a great company called Henkel, has taken advantage of this technology. In fact, you would imagine that remote expert assistance was particularly valuable over the course of the pandemic. And Henkel was able to keep over 30 manufacturing facilities up and running, even in the face of travel bans, even in the face of social distancing. And what they've recognized is that well after the pandemic has ended and more people are showing up at work, they still see tremendous value in this particular way of communicating. Now, I've talked a little bit about different use cases across, let's say, the employee's life cycle, but the reality is that AR and digital eyewear has broad applicability across the entire value chain. From collaborative sessions in engineering where we want to be able to visualize products at scale as a collective group, all the way through sales and marketing for virtual product demonstrations, and then on to manufacturing, operations, and finally customer service. Today, what we're seeing is that in industrial enterprises, a tremendous amount of the value, well more than 50% of the use cases that are deployed today, are in those categories of service and manufacturing. And this makes sense because that's really where work is being done in the physical world, and the value of digital content is incredibly high. Getting the right information to those folks is incredibly valuable. Now, I'm excited also to announce today new support, a new device that we're supporting with the Vuforia portfolio. The new device that we're supporting is the Magic Leap device. Now, the Magic Leap device has been in the market for some time, but with the recent pivot at Magic Leap to a more enterprise focus, we're seeing much more traction in PTC's traditional customers with this device. It's a fantastic device. It's got great capabilities. And it's, of course, perfect for the hands-free work that's really important in service, manufacturing, and operation scenarios. We've supported the Magic Leap device with our computer vision SDK, Vuforia Engine, for quite some time, but I'm very excited that now more and more of our out-of-the-box offerings, like Vuforia Expert Capture, Vuforia Instruct, those will be coming to the Magic Leap device. We're actually providing support in a beta fashion right now, and by the end of the year, this will be available for all of you to take advantage of for these industrial enterprise use cases. Now, as I wrap up, I want to share with you a little bit of a perspective on what your journey might be like. Some of the learnings that PTC has come across, that I've personally come across, as we've worked with over 5,000 enterprise customers that are taking advantage of AR technology and digital eyewear in industrial enterprises today. So some things that I think are really valuable to think about is, first off, there's no doubt that AR is incredibly compelling technology. It's cool, it's interesting, it's even fun. But at the end of the day, in the business world, what's most important is that we're driving meaningful value. And all of that begins by selecting the right use cases. So I think it's very important to understand what use cases are most important. Where are the challenges? Where is there opportunity for improvement in your business processes? The second thing to think about is what kind of content is relevant in those use cases. Where will that content come from? Is it tacit domain knowledge in the heads of experts? Is it highly engineered 3D data? Is it something that happens ad hoc in a real-time collaboration? And as you think about that content, how will it be authored? How will it be updated? How will you manage it and ultimately scale? It's very easy to create an AR experience that communicates something. The challenge is communicating something that changes over time and then scaling that out to a broad audience. Another important factor are devices. Again, this goes back to the use case. Is it important to have both hands free? That's going to be important in influencing you to pursue wearables. Is it important that broad device availability is important, right? My service technicians, my end customers already have tablets and phones. That's another thing that you might want to consider. And then finally, I'd encourage you to think about the vision of the vendor that you're working with. Are they a vendor that provides a one-off solution and might solve one problem for you today, but doesn't have an enterprise suite offering? In my opinion, AR will be an enterprise play. The breadth of use cases, the broad applicability says to me that you are going to want an enterprise AR suite with a collection of tools that address a broad variety of use cases across a broad variety of devices. So I think you need to be careful about choosing a technology stack where the software and the hardware are inextricably linked together. What happens when the next great device, like the Magic Leap device, or whatever lies just beyond the horizon comes out? Will you have support for it? So some things that I'd suggest you keep in mind. My advice on getting started today is, again, think about opportunities to create value. Where can you either reduce costs or increase revenue opportunities? Understand the use cases, right? That's what it all begins with. And understanding the use cases is half the battle. Picking one use case and beginning with that use case and accepting that small wins will allow you to scale from there is key. And that ties into short and long-term goals, right? We work with a lot of customers in a proven methodology where we focus on quick wins that drive meaningful value and allow us to build momentum and then scale from there. And then finally, the last point is it's important to have all of the right internal stakeholders. There's a lot at play here, right? We're talking about affecting end users. We're talking about requiring IT infrastructure. We're talking about potentially changing business processes. And we're talking about, ultimately, I hope, about business value. So there's a broad collection of people that need to be involved. This isn't just a technology discussion. So some things to think about as I wrap up. I think it might be interesting maybe to just share a couple of questions since we can't do this live today interactively. The couple of questions that I often get. So the first of those is, in what industries are frontline workers already embracing these kinds of concepts, AR solutions, digital eyewear? And I can share with you from my perspective, in the industrial enterprise, the embracing is happening everywhere. It's happening everywhere from consumer packaged goods through automotive, aerospace, defense, other industrial domains. It's happening in healthcare and other pharmaceutical and other life sciences and frankly, other process industries as well. In fact, In process industries, we're seeing a lot of traction with this idea of digitizing work instructions, right? Where regulatory compliance is particularly important. So having digital artifacts, having auditability is incredibly valuable. And then maybe one last question as I wrap up. What are the biggest barriers to frontline workers in adoption of these solutions? Well, there's a lot at stake here, as I said, right? We've got to have the right infrastructure. We've got to have the right technology, either software or hardware. So assuming all of that is in place, at the end of the day, we're talking a lot about change management. Think about it. When you put digital eyewear on somebody's head, you're literally changing the way they see the world. So my advice is to include those workers early on in the process, right? Make sure that they understand the overall vision that you have. Make sure that they have a chance to become familiar with the technology before the go live day when you show up and say, here it is, go work in this entirely new and different way. So thanks again for the chance to share a perspective with you. I look forward to the next time when we all get together and do this live. But in the meantime, feel free to reach out with questions, comments, either via email or social media. Enjoy the rest of the conference, and thanks again.